Slavery is back.
Welcome to a place where private business profit from a captive labour force, yet pennies are spent on medical services to a population in which the Indigenous, the poor and the mentally ill are overrepresented. Where isolation, humiliation and degradation are facts of life. Welcome to prison.
It depends who's telling the story, I suppose. The prisoners would have one view, the people who work in the prison system would have another, and I think it's up to people to decide where the truth is.
Give government propaganda and the media spin doctors the flick. And check out Doin Time for news, views and tunes on prison issues from Guantanamo Bay to Christmas Island to prisons and detention centres everywhere. Every Monday at 4 p.m. on your community radio 3CR.
We are still fired up and we're still talking about revolution.
Hello and welcome to the Doin Time show. This is 3CR Community Radio, 855 AM on the dial, streaming live on www.3cr.org.au. My name is Marisa and I'll be taking you through until 5 o'clock this evening. And a warning that there may be audio content of Aboriginal and Torres-Strait Islander peoples that have passed over. First up on the show, we will hear from Alan Brown, who is a proud Gunditjmara man, an ambassador and life member of the Victorian Aboriginal Health Service. Alan has been involved with VAHS for over 40 years in various roles, including as chairperson for 10 years and also as CEO. Alan will tell us about the history of the Victorian Aboriginal Health Service, celebrating 50 years of caring for community. After that, we will speak with Ian Rintoul from the Refugee Action Coalition about a media release entitled Government Must Stop Its Re-Detention Raids. And then we will speak with Commissioner Sue-Ann Hunter about the Yoorrook Justice Commission, which will commence on Wednesday. It's 2 weeks of public hearings as part of its inquiry into the systemic injustices experienced by First Peoples within Victoria's child protection and criminal justice systems. Sue-Ann Hunter is a proud Wurundjeri woman currently holding the titles of Deputy Chair and Commissioner with the Yoorrook Justice Commission. More about this later. This year, the Victorian Aboriginal Health Service celebrates 50 years of caring for community since establishing in 1973. As the oldest Aboriginal community-controlled health organisation in Victoria and second oldest in the country, Aboriginal community-controlled health organisations operate in culturally safe, holistic ways that contribute to improving the lives of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. I am honoured to welcome Alan to speak about this and more, and I'm hoping that Alan is going to share with us all about the history. Hello, Alan.
Hello.
Welcome to the program.
Hello, Marisa.
It's lovely to have you. And I was wondering, you've been at 3CR before, haven't you? You would have been.
Certainly. My 3CR days go back to Cromwell Street, Collingwood.
Oh, wow.
And when we had some courses going up in, it just sounds like the late 70s.
Yeah.
And also later on, we had Koori College going, and our students would do some radio programs. I also did some radio with some of the Koori presenters that have graced the airwaves on 3CR over the years. All of them staunch warriors. All
of them. And can you talk? I mean, who were they? Was it Robbie?
Rob. Of course, Robbie, Gary McGuinness, Ronnie Briggs.
Yeah.
Gary Foley.
Fantastic.
A few of the guys, and we seen 3CR was just a valuable media platform for us to be able to get on and communicate with the rest of the people around the place about issues that were affecting Aboriginal people. All rights based, all about injustice, and presented by local Aboriginal people who were at the coalface of the impact of some of the things that we were talking about.
Yeah, well, that's right. But the reason why I invited you on, and actually Vanessa from the VAHS helped me find you, because the Doin Time show does a lot of Aboriginal-led interviews, and we do a lot of work in building the movement to stop Aboriginal deaths in custody, and we cover a lot of health stuff as well. So can you start off telling us about the history of the Victorian Aboriginal Health Service? How did it start? How did you get to this point?
Oh, well, look, one of the good things about, one of the really strong things about Victorian Aboriginal and Traditional Islander groups and Victorian Aboriginal people is our resilience and our courage and our vision. And I'm not talking about us mob now. I'm talking about historically, we've always had a good background and a depth of people in our communities who would dare and would challenge and see ways around injustices and that were impacting on us as people and as families and as communities. So we're talking about 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s and all that. And so VAHS was set up in FItzroy, not far from 3CR in Smith Street, 229 Smith Street. And it was a group of local Aboriginal people who decided enough is enough. Although hospitals were pretty close to the populace of Aboriginal people in Fitzroy, they might as well have been on the moon in terms of accessibility and equity. So we needed to run our own health services. So this group of people, relatively inexperienced in running health services, I might add, but certainly full of courage and want and vision for the right for Aboriginal people to determine our own health journey. So they formed together as a group of people, started very, very humble beginnings, volunteers and all that type of stuff. 229 Gunditjmara Street, where now VAHS is a very complex. We've got five clinics, we've got 280 staff, we've got lots of programs, but all of that same. We still maintain that over 50 years, that same principle of caring for a community. The local Aboriginal community are the bosses of our organisation, and that's the only way that could be.
So it started off in Gertrude Street. What are some of the changes that have happened since then?
Oh, well, there's been massive changes in, as you can imagine, our relationship with government is just like a minefield. The goalposts keep getting moved, and so that's one of the interesting changes. But early days, VAHS was set up in spite of government. There wasn't really that much government support. Not that we really were seeking it, because we were going to do it anyway. But there wasn't. But they needed to step up and show responsibility for the health status of Aboriginal people in this country. So they need to invest in the things that make a difference. That's what Aboriginal health services do: make a difference and save lives. So that's one of the big changes. We're now the CEO of VAHS, Mick Graham, and some of our board members and other senior sort of management type people, they sit at the big table and start to make decisions about the impacts of health. But 50 years ago, that was quite the opposite. And we've been through a journey of various different state and federal governments of different political persuasions who all think they've got the answer for Aboriginal people, and their biggest failure has been not to listen to Aboriginal people. That's sort of changing now, and you've got to be optimistic about that. But that's one of the biggest changes. I think the other important thing is that the medical professionalism is on the move and it's on the increase. Where now Aboriginal people are more comfortable with becoming Aboriginal health workers, which are quite significant, doctors, nurses, and managing the place. So, our workforce is vastly increased to where local Aboriginal people are also running the place, but also delivering the service.
Alan, I'm going to be careful here because I don't want to talk too much about women's business, but I do want to make one comment, and I just want to see what you think of this. In the history of genocide and ongoing colonisation, over the years I've interviewed quite a few women, particularly older women, that are too frightened to actually go into hospitals and give birth. And in fact, their grandmothers, as stolen generation survivors, have actually been left out of the hospital system to die. What do you think of that?
Yes.
And how can we work with that?
Well, you're absolutely right, and that's one of the travesties about what's going on, in our country now. I'm 64, and I've got people my age who were stolen from their families in local hospitals. Now, hospitals not far from where people listening to the program are, and it was done for no good reason except that whatever the reasons were, just breaking families apart. And it doesn't surprise me, that hospitals are not seen as places of healing. Hospitals then were seen as places of where you wake up in an emergency, or you're likely to be stolen from your parents as a great child. But and so that's one of the greatest injustices, and maybe you can ask Sue Ann Hunter later on how they going to deal with that through the Yoorrook Truth Commission, because that's the stuff that needs to be hit the table for people to be able to hear. The sadness and the grief of their families being torn apart simply by having a child in hospital, something that non-Aboriginal Australia does every day, every minute. But for us, it begins a journey sometimes, which is very difficult to repair. But having said that, I know from my time in VAHS that Aboriginal women in particular are the backbone of our community. They are the strength, and they've got the resilience. And I'll say that as an Aboriginal man, I've no shame in saying that. The organisation VAHS has had a litany of strong Aboriginal women bringing up families, keeping families together, and being their matriarchs around the things that we need to do to progress the rights of Aboriginal people.
I'm so happy to hear that, and I'm hoping that VAHS, like they've achieved a lot of supports and firsts in Australia, haven't they? And they've established the first Aboriginal dental clinic and the Women and Children's program. And I'm hoping that more and more Aboriginal people will be able to come in and not have that fear anymore, even now.
Absolutely. I'm proud to be a part of ours. And I've seen, one of the good things about VAHS, one of our strengths is we take the blinkers off. We don't have a Western medical model vision. Now, that's not part of us. We take the best bits of Western medicine. Give us a doctor, give us a nurse, give us a surgeon, and we'll take them. But the main thing is there's also Aboriginal constructs that also add to what we do. And I've seen VAHS make decisions about health service delivery, which are now the normal medical lingo that every other health service non-Aboriginal wants to do in the country. The wraparound service, the holistic approach, the health service where you could see a dentist and a pharmacist and a doctor in the same building. Aboriginal Health Services started all that because we've seen that was necessary. But just up the road from 3CR is the FItzroy Gym, or Marisa, what it's now called, in Gertrude Street. That's where our local community's seen participation in sport and physical activity is really important. And they were doing that 40 years ago. And now everybody's onto that. Koori College, Aboriginal Health Worker Training, we ran our own health education college. Koori Information Centre, Ninda Workshop, Arts and Crafts Facility, all these sort of different things. But it's also the Aboriginal Funeral Service, which has now grown to where we take responsibility for the burial of our own people, but we also have our own cemetery out in Woorrook. So all these from little things, big things grow. And VAHS has always had the blinkers off and able to find ways and be creative and be courageous and to get things done.
Alan, I'm really happy that you've come on because not only have you given us the history, but you've also given us a few services in case people are listening, and Aboriginal people, and also Aboriginal people in prison may be listening and may be getting out soon and will need to connect with some of those places.
Absolutely. Like for anybody that's locked up at the moment, be strong. Come and visit us when you can. As soon as the doors are open, pop into VAHS, Nicholson Street, Plenty Road. We've got a clinic in Epping. We're going to have a clinic in St Albans. Find a way to reconnect with us. We've got some people that work with people in prisons and out of prisons. but we'll also be able to hook you back into the community and also possibly give you some support and get you on track. That's really important. But we'll do it in a friendly way and a safe way.
Alan, thank you so much for coming onto the program. And later on in the show, we'll be hearing from Sue-Ann, Commissioner Sue-Ann, and we'll talk more about all this as well. Can I have you back on sometime, Alan? I'd really love to talk to you more.
Absolutely. That's not a problem. Do that anytime. Just let me know.
Wonderful. And a special thank you to Vanessa for organising this.
Okay. No worries. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.
And that was Alan Brown from the Victorian Aboriginal Health Service. And throughout the year, the Health Service will host a series of events to celebrate the 50 years. And we'll be speaking with Ian Rintoul next from the Refugee Action Coalition.
Do you believe in the right to protest? Are you concerned about climate change and the environment? Then come and make your voice heard at a mass meeting on the right to organise for climate and the environment. Join others at 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday, March 7th at 535 Elizabeth Street, Central Melbourne, to discuss and then vote on practical ways to support climate action and the environment and to defend the right to protest. Speakers include proud Gunai woman Marjorie Thorpe, United Workers Union's Godfrey Mose, and Environment Justice Australia lawyer Natalie Hogan, and will be facilitated by Tuffy Morwitzer, campaigner for the Goongerah Environment Centre. Come participate in some direct democracy for a better world. Your voice matters. RSVP is essential. Go to gecko.org.au/calendar to book your ticket. This event is wheelchair accessible and Auslan interpreted. A 3CR supporter.
And in case you've just tuned in, this is the Doin Time show and 8:55 a.m. on the dial, streaming live on www.3cr.org.au. Having introduced laws to overturn the legal decision last December that saw 163 people released from immigration detention, the government has begun re-detaining people. On the line we have Ian Rintoul, who is always instrumental in providing accurate and up-to-date coverage about the plight of asylum seekers and refugees. And here he is. Hello, Ian. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, hi, Marisa. Thank you.
Lovely to have you. Now, I'm just been a little bit concerned lately about what's been happening. I mean, there's been a lot of, re-detaining, and there's been a few laws, that have come in that are supposed to be good, that have been introduced by Labor. About visas, can you tell us a little bit of background?
Well, the thing that's got most publicity has been the Labor Party has finally put into place its promise that it made, took to the election in May last year, and so 19,000 people who were on temporary visas are now going to get permanent. They've got to apply, but that 19,000 are eligible for permanent visas. So that's going to make an enormous difference to them and their families and their circumstances in Australia. But it's, the one piece of good news out of, we've been waiting 9 months. It's taken a long time to get that one piece of good news. It's finally come through and will make an enormous difference, as I said. But most of the other things that have come from the Labor Party, are not, anything to celebrate. Even the decision about the 19,000, while it's very good for those people, Labor has said nothing about the 10,000 people who were rejected under the Morrison government's fast-track system. It was a system that was designed to reject people, and it rejected people by the thousand. And so there's 10,000 people who are still rejected and have got nothing, from the, Labor's announcement that we were expecting. And the people from Medivac, there's sort of 1,100 of them and their kids now born in Australia are in the community, some in community detention, some with bridging visas, but they're still being told that they'll never, settle in Australia. But your introduction related to an even worse piece, something from the Labor Party. Actually, it's like directly from the Liberal Party's immigration playbook. There was a federal court decision in December that said that some of the reasons that people had been in immigration detention were unlawful, and as a consequence of that decision, 163 people were released. The Labor Party's response to that was exactly what we've seen the Liberal Party do on previous occasions when they've lost in court. They've gone into the Parliament, they've changed the law. This time, Labor's actually retrospectively given themselves retrospective powers so that anyone who is released is liable to be re-detained, and that's they've actually started that process. So there's probably 30 or 40 people by now of the 163 who have been round up and are back in immigration detention as a consequence of that law change.
I fail to understand what this means. Why? Why is this happening?
Well, that's a very good question because, the Labor was also elected with the kind of understanding that their attitude to the 501s, many of whom are New Zealanders, they're able to detain people under Section 501 of the Migration Act simply because they're non-citizens. Labor indicated that they would take a softer attitude to those visa cancellations, but that's not what we've seen. So even there was a small announcement about Section 501, but as I said, this law, I think, just is one indication of it's like the other decision that they made, a little while ago was to, re-establish Nauru as an offshore detention place. And even though that had lapsed in December, the Labor Party was very keen to put that instrument, also put another instrument through Parliament, re-establishing that Nauru was a legitimate offshore detention centre for Australia. And this piece with the 501s effectively means, I think, in spite of any little change that may happen, the overall architecture of immigration detention and of offshore detention simply remains in place, and Labor is very, very committed, to keep those things there. So Section 501 is going to stay there. It's going to stay as a discriminatory and effectively a racist measure under the Migration Act, allowing people to have their visas automatically cancelled, or for them to be able to be cancelled on character grounds by the minister. So you can do the crime, do the time, and still find yourself in immigration detention sometimes, and often is the case now, is for longer than any time you've done in prison.
Ian, I just wanted to have you on just to check in because there's so much that's been going on.
Yeah, and it's a fair bit to take in, Marisa.
It really is, and I think that it's starting to feel to me like Labor and Liberal might be a little bit similar.
Well, I think over the question of immigration detention, they are a fair bit similar, and that's one of the problems I think that people need to recognise. I mean, we've had to fight them all the way. They've lived up to that promise over the permanent visas, but even that, their policy says that they will abolish temporary protection visas. They haven't abolished temporary protection visas. What they've done is allow the 19,000 who are on temporary protection visas to apply for permanency. That's great for those 19,000, but it does mean that the laws, the architecture, the offshore detention, the indefinite detention, the mandatory detention, every bit of that is still in place.
Let's hope that that Labor can actually overcome some of those legacies from the Morrison government. It is pretty early in the piece at the moment, isn't it? We've got to try to be positive and see what happens.
Oh, yes. We can find. I mean, I think I try to make that point as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't just come out of the goodness of their heart. I mean, there's been so many campaigns for so many years. People have fought inside and outside detention to win permanent visas, and I think we should take, take some sustenance from that decision. Look, we've actually won those 19,000. It's not the Labor Party's win; it's actually the movement's win in that in that regard. And if we won that for the 19,000, then we can win more.
Absolutely, Ian. Well said. Look, thank you so much for coming onto the program, And I'm
That's
sure we'll
okay.
be talking to you again very soon.
No worries. Thanks, Marisa.
Thanks so much. And that was Ian Rintoul from the Refugee Action Coalition, speaking about the plight of refugees and asylum seekers. Quite a lot of complex things going on, good news, and also a lot to be looked at.
The Yoorrook Justice Commission is the first formal truth-telling inquiry into injustice experienced by First Peoples in Victoria. From Monday, February 27 to Friday, March 10, Yoorrook is holding public hearings with First Peoples witnesses who have experienced injustice in the child protection and criminal justice systems. You can watch the hearings online or make a submission at yoorrookjusticecommission.org. A 3CR supporter.
One, two, three, four. Uncle Banjo told me before the children went away, life was good, life was free. Not like it is today. Children running everywhere, and the trees were looking after. Little spirits dancing there among the sweet, sweet laughter. Oh, baby's weeping in the forest. Now that the children have gone, and the trees at night get no rest. For they were there when the children were born. Uncle, let me fly away with you, and let me see the things you see. When children laugh as children do, as they play among the trees, I bet there's weeping in the forest. Now that the children have gone, and the trees at night get no rest. They were there when the children were born.
And you're back with the Doin Time show 3CR. The Yoorrook Justice Commission will commence 2 weeks of public hearings as part of its inquiry into the systemic injustices experienced by First Nations people within Victoria's child protection and criminal justice systems. From March 1st, Yoorrook commissioners will hear from First Peoples, including parents whose children have been removed, carers and members of the stolen generations as part of their inquiry into the child protection system. The second week, commencing March 6th, will centre on Victoria's criminal justice system, including the need to reform bail laws to stop people being unnecessarily imprisoned in pre-trial detention, the age of criminal responsibility and police accountability systems. The Commission will hear evidence from First Peoples who have been involved in the adult and youth criminal justice systems and their families, as well as advocates and experts. The Doin Time show interviews about all these things week in, week out. I'm excited to welcome Commissioner Sue-Ann Hunter to the program. Hello, Sue-Ann. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's lovely to have you, and sorry for the long introduction, but I wanted to really explain to listeners exactly what's going on.
Yeah, look, it's a lot. It is a Royal Commission into systemic injustices for our people, and it's from 1788 to historic to contemporary. So it's quite broad and it's quite big. And I think, given just off the back of prison visits last week, so I went to correctional facilities, it's probably good time that actually you guys check in and see where we're at.
It's really important. And in fact, can you just tell listeners what is treaty and how is this part of treaty in Victoria?
Okay, so treaty is, it's the First Peoples Assembly that was elected by mob, and they formed an assembly. So the assembly is a voice at this point to government, not the voice, but, Victorian government. And one of the things they really wanted to push for was, they will, negotiate a treaty framework, what it looks like, all that stuff. But in the process of doing that, they really pushed for the truth-telling process to happen. So that is Yoorrook, which means truth in Wurundjeri. So it's the Truth and Justice Commission, and we've been set up as a Royal Commission, looking at, as I previously said, historic and contemporary systemic injustices faced by First People. So big task, absolutely massive, and I feel the weight of it every day, particularly knowing, I'm a Wurundjeri narrator, I'm a Wurrung woman, so knowing, these are my mobs and these are my people, and making sure, because I think one of the things I've said time and time again is, there's no use in telling the truth unless there's justice, right? So justice is the outcome.
It really is important. And I'm wondering, while we're talking about lands and country, can you just tell listeners what lands you're from?
Yeah, so I'm from Naarm, so Melbourne, and I'm a Wurundjeri Wurrung woman. And just want to pay respect to any elders that are listening out there, and I hope we're doing them justice.
I'm sure. And I was just going to ask you, because I was talking to Alan Brown earlier on from the Victorian Aboriginal Health Service about truth-telling. We talked a little bit about women and health, and I didn't want to talk too much to Alan about that because, this is women's business. So I wanted to really talk to you about what are some of the truths, do you think, that are important for women, not just in child protection but also in the criminal justice system to talk about there?
I guess I can just look. Health covers across all spectrums of everything we do. And as you know, it's all interrelated.
It is.
But I guess coming off the back of particularly Dame Phyllis Frost last week, which was really hit us in the, it's a good reality check to go in and speak to the women there. And we had, we don't expect them to come forward. It's up to them if they want to speak to us or not. We probably had about 20 women speak to us, which was great.
From the prison?
Yeah, so we went into James Hillis, which was really good. The health conditions are pretty shocking. I think there's 8 hours of funding for a dentist for all the women in there. Just to see a psych, for instance, could take up. There's even what's brought into it is if you're there on remand waiting or if you're sentenced. So if you're on remand, you can't get these services or, there's certain things you can't get because you're not sentenced yet. So, and there's women been in there over 18 months still on remand and haven't been sentenced. The mental health was the biggest thing. And these women are crying out for help. They can see doctors. But I guess, as I'm a clinician, for family services clinician, and I think one of the biggest things for me is that connection to family and community is completely lost, and particularly when you bring kids into it and you don't get to see them or you get to see them rarely. I think that plays into the mental health a hell of a lot.
It really does, and it's so important, isn't it, to have leadership of Aboriginal community-controlled organisations, and have you actually had a lot of experience with that?
Yeah, look, I think one of the things is Danefield Frost has, Western Health coming in, or they've got another facility rather coming in to do the health services. So you're hoping that lifts that sort of game. But you've also, they're pretty good in there. They've got in the fact that they're having these clinics that I found out. So one of the aunties in there is organising things like hearing, optometrists, things like that with the health service to come in and check out what's going on with the women. But it's not a consistent thing. It takes someone to organise that. Yeah. I think that our mob know our mob. And, if you want to talk about self-determination, you want to talk about better health outcomes, you're talking about let's do it for ourselves. I prefer myself to go to an ACCHO rather than a mainstream health service because I understand my needs better as an Aboriginal woman. So why can't we have that same right within the prison system?
There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and despite that, we had the privatisation of correct care and the inquest of Veronica Nelson and her death recently. And I did put out a warning to listeners that there may be deaths talked about.
Yeah, look, I think, one of the girls said to me in there, and this really stuck, when people say these things and they just stick with you, she just said to me, why does it have to be a death to make people aware of this? Because this is the treatment we get every day. Now, she's talking about people coming down off drugs and listening to them, all you get is Panadol, listening to their screams, hearing the pain they go through. And they said, we know that, we don't want to be addicts. But we hear other people coming down through this, and it's a symptom of our trauma. They're so insightful as to, what they need and what they want, but it's just not heard, And so, to be honest, it's a real honour that these women were able to share what they shared, with us.
And will this be recorded as part of the commission?
So what it was recorded, but the thing we will be de-identified because we don't want, that's what the women want, and we don't want to put, unless they make a submission themselves in their own name and they want to make that public, that's fine. But at the same time, we don't want to add to people's stress inside. And so it will go as it'll form part of our public record. So anybody that comes forward, as we know, truth is told by the colonisers all the time. The history is told by the colonisers. We don't get a say in what the history says, but now it's our turn to get a say in what the history says. So we'll be creating a public record with our voices in it. This is the first in Australia formal truth commission. So we should as Victorians, actually, we should be proud, I think, to have this happening. And we do it in the way the person giving their truth or their story, whatever you want to call it, is safe and comfortable. They also get to share it or not share it with the public, but it still forms part of a public record because it goes in sort of like thematically, and, you know, we read all these and they don't just sit there and do nothing. They'll help form our recommendations.
I was wondering if you could just at this point tell listeners about the structure of the Royal Commission, how it works and what's going to be happening, because I know that the second week is going to be looking at the criminal injustice or justice system, I should say.
Yeah.
Could you talk about that?
Yeah, we've got two themes running at the moment, and that's the child protection system and the criminal justice system. And so our job is to look at the systemic injustice. So this has been going on for a little while now, and we've had, our very first public hearings were around elders giving voice to what we need to, telling their stories, and that's continuing to run. But we've now picked up those two themes because the elders, pretty much as we went around the state, told us of the themes they want us to look at, and they were screaming out for these two. And so we've had organisations and experts. We've already done one round of 2 weeks of hearings, and this will be our second round of hearings. So this week is the voices of community telling their story for child protection, and the second week is criminal justice. Now, just because we're not doing things publicly doesn't mean there's not things happening behind the scenes. So we also went on country and did some public hearings, private hearings in Portland last week. So they're not all in a room, but the public ones are screened online, and you can go onto our website at any time and view them. We try to make this as public as possible with what people want. So, it may turn off at any point where someone feels they don't want to share some stuff. And so listen to the sirens in the background. No idea what's going on. Sorry about that. Don't know if you can hear them.
I can't actually. Go on.
The next theme is land justice, but it doesn't mean that we stop on criminal justice and child protection. They just go right through. We have what we call a critical issues report coming up for 30 June. Our recommendations don't just go to government. They go to the First Peoples Assembly as well. That's the thing I like about it. It's not just going to sit with government. First Peoples Assembly then get to push for these recommendations to be implemented. The reason we want to hear from mobs around, all things, particularly these two, is, colonisation is a process that's still happening today. And, we've got stolen generation children being moved. It's just in another form today. So we want to hear people's stories to be able to make really clear recommendations about how the system needs to be overhauled. I mean, we could sit here and say, this is what needs to be done, this is what needs to be done. But those voices of our mob really push those recommendations forward. And these aren't for us to say what we want. These are to say what mob needs, how we can stop our children being removed at the worst rate in Australia, and how we stop the over-incarceration of particularly our women and men, but particularly our women, because that rate just keeps growing, and how we keep families together. So that answered that.
And raising the age of criminal responsibility. So, sovereignty obviously has never been ceded in this country, has it? So
no.
This commission started happening way before the possible referendum coming up with the voice to Parliament. This is a separate issue in Victoria.
Just Victoria, yeah.
So we need to, in some ways, and I want to see what you think of this, demand a sovereign treaty with an independent sovereign treaty commission, don't we? And it's interesting that you were mentioning that those recommendations are not just going to government, and I'm glad of that.
Yeah, me too. Totally, me too. I think if that's what people want, right? I don't want to ever preempt what mob want. I don't want to do that. But if we have people coming forward saying this is how we want it to be and this is what it looks like, because our recommendations are to inform treaty as well. So, we've heard about a possible justice treaty. We've heard some people talk about that. So that informs us as well. Is it a separate child protection treaty? There's things that that people could possibly put forward, and we can have a look, because we have been looking around the world at different treaties, how that's happening, what's been happening, what recommendations in truth-telling, what the process is. There's no reason we can't do that with other suggestions or other ideas. If that, you can put in a submission at any point, So
tell us how you do that. How do you do that?
Yeah, you go onto our website, which is www.yoorrook, which is YOORROOK.org.au. So once you're in there, it'll say, do you want to make a submission? You can either, we've got LodgePA, and we've also got our truth receivers. So LodgePA is the legal side of it. If you want some legal input, that's for free. And our truth receivers will come out and assist you in writing your submission if you need that. You may, someone rang the other day and said, I'm sure mine's just a brain dump. And we're like, that's all we need. It's in your words. That's what we, want. You can give us your submission any way you like: song, dance, artefacts, poetry, paintings, and we've received a few things at the moment, different things, paintings, poetry. I think we got someone wrote on a napkin when we were out there and said, this is my submission. It's what you want to tell, because I say to people, there's parts of your story you probably don't want to tell, and that's okay, but there's parts you really do, and that's okay as well. It's up to... We're not here to re-traumatise people. We're here to start and hopefully assist with the healing process.
And where does, with the First Peoples Assembly, where does it go from here? Once the commission's finished, will these recommendations just be, sorry to say this, but put in a history archive, or will it be looked at? Yeah.
And look, I think one of the things is knowing, for me, that all our royal commissions have been just these books that sit on a shelf and collect dust, right?
Yeah.
That's not what I want for this one. We're the first truth-telling body in Australia, and Victoria's leading the way.
Yep.
We now have, the First Peoples Assembly to negotiate these, right? And so I sort of put it like we're sort of the research arm. So we get all the truths and we do all the research, and then we say, right, these are the recommendations that people want. This is what we're hearing. And then it goes over to somebody else. I think the truth-telling process can completely finish once the commission's finished. I think it's a long-term process, and I'm sure that'll be a recommendation in itself, because, not every... takes time to trust, and we're another Royal Commission, totally get that. Why are they going to trust us? One of the things is, this is First Peoples led. So out of the 5 commissioners, 4 are First Peoples. So that in itself is groundbreaking work. That we have Indigenous data sovereignty principles, which helps protect your data or your story. And we're not just handing this over to government, we're handing it over to mobs, so we're still accountable. But that's the way I see it.
I'm glad.
That we're still in the process of pushing these forward. So that is part of the reason I'm hopeful, and I have hope, because I have hope in our people that we're all going to push forward for what's needed and what needs to be changed, because we can't continue the way we're going.
Absolutely, and I'm so happy that the second week commenced, starting March 6th. That's going to look at Victoria's criminal justice system, including the need, isn't it, Sue-Ann, to reform bail laws to stop people being unnecessarily imprisoned? Yeah,
so the critical issues report, which is due 30 June, is really about harms happening now. So we want in that report harms that we want to make recommendations about those harms happening now to stop that happening, while we're doing the bigger piece of work about, for me, it's not tinkering around the edges of any of these systems. We need whole new systems. So what do those whole new systems look like? And that'll be in the final report. But just to be really clear, we've got to do something now. So that critical issues report will look at in the criminal justice system, the criminal age of responsibility. It will also, it's had a blank, the bail reform, particularly, which has that's really, we've got people doing time on remand, and when they get sentenced, it's less than what they've already done, and we know we're overrepresented in these systems, so to stop those harms happening. I mean, in our first week's hearings, Daniel Andrews come out and talked about the criminal justice as a child protection system and said we need an overhaul. He's now talked about the criminal age of responsibility, which we'll be making recommendations, and it doesn't mean that we can't visit it in the final report, because we'll be watching if these things get implemented and they aren't self-determining for our people. So we can still got time to make recommendations about on top of what's been done, if that makes sense to you. It
does. It really does. Yeah. And I'm so happy that you were able to come on, Sue-Ann. We've nearly finished our show. Are there any final comments that you want to make, and where can people come if they actually want to go in person?
Yeah, so we're at 54 Wellington Street in Collingwood, up on the 9th floor. Don't let this be something that happens to someone else. Be part of it. You don't have, even if you just want to inquire, you're unsure about, telling your truth, every bit adds to the public record. And the more we get, the more credible, well, they are credible, but the more credible our recommendations become because they've got more information behind it. You'll never be cross-examined. Your truth is your truth, and that's all we ask for. And there's plenty of assistance. So if you go to www.yoorrook.org.au, you'll also be able to see previous hearings. And what I'll say to people is if you're watching the hearings or you want to watch previous hearings, really take care of yourself in that moment. If you're not ready to watch them, don't. And just become part of it. Even if you, at this point, don't want to, sign up for a newsletter and see what's happening. There may be something that interests you or something you want to say or talk about. So we're on social media. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn and Instagram as well. So feel free to reach out to us if you've got any questions at all.
I hope so. I hope this works. I mean, one of the things that I've learnt over many years, Sue-Ann, is interviewing a lot of Aboriginal people, men and women, and quite a few people feeling really left out of the process, feeling like that they haven't been consulted, especially people in regional Victoria. And we just need to be more united.
Yeah, we hear that. The further we go away from Melbourne, the more we hear that. And I love that we can get out on country to take people's truth. We're not a Royal Commission where we sit behind a desk and you come to us. All the commissioners are out and about, and you'll probably see us more over the coming time. But definitely link up with either our website, our social media, because it'll have in advance where we're going and where we'll be. So, the more... I just want to say I'm just really proud of our mob. We always show up and we always, keep telling our stories and stories again till they're heard, and I'm just honoured to be the one that listens. So I just want to thank those that come out and get involved. It's big, and we look after you, and we promise to look after you in the best possible way we can.
And I'm honoured to have you, Sue-Ann, on the show, and I hope that you felt safe talking to me.
Oh, I definitely did. Thank you so much for having us, because the more we talk about it, the more we get the word out, the more people know. And, it doesn't need to be big voices, just those little voices are really important too.
Sue-Ann, it's lovely to have you, and I'm hoping to have you back soon, and I really mean that.
Yeah, no, happy to come back. So thank you for having me on.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Right, take care.
Keep it up. Bye-bye. And that was Commissioner Sue-Ann Hunter, who has done some really amazing work, and she's been one of the commissioners for the Yoorrook Justice Commission. It's approximately 4:54, and I wanted to thank everybody for coming in, and thank you also to Evan for organising this interview. And Evan used to work at the Human Rights Law Centre, so it's a pretty small world. So thank you to Sue-Ann, also to Ian Rintoul, and thanks also to Alan Brown as well for coming onto the show. And we're going to be going out with our theme song, Black Fella, White Fella, from the Rumpy Band. And I encourage you to listen every Monday from 4 to 5 for the Doin Time show. Do listen next Monday in particular, because I've got a very special guest coming on, and you'll have to listen to find out. And it's goodbye from Marisa. And as I said, we're going to be going out now with our theme song, Black Fella, White Fella from the Rumpy Band. Before I go, you heard also a song by Archie Roach called Weeping in the Forest. And I also wanted to pay a quick tribute to Uncle Jack Charles, who recently passed away. Archie Roach passed away. They've all been, members of the stolen generation. Okay. Thanks a lot, everybody, and thanks for listening. And I'll see you next week. Bye. And we're having some technical difficulties at the moment. Maybe no one wants me to go. I'm going to be locked in the studio. And pretty soon, hopefully, we're going to be having Black Fella, White Fella. There we are. Bye.
You've been listening to a 3CR podcast produced in the studios of independent community radio station 3CR in Melbourne, Australia. For more information, go to allthews.3cr.org.au.
Black fella, white fella, it doesn't matter what you colour, as long as you are true.